Building wealth isn't just about personal gain, it's about empowering yourself and your community. This is Wealthy AF, your ultimate guide to understanding what it truly means to be wealthy AF. Today's guest is Jeremy Fouts, and our topic today is going to be the resilient leader overcoming entrepreneurial challenges. Jeremy is a true expert in the realm of personal development with a proven track record of helping people reach their peak performance. Jeremy's work with elite professionals and athletes is legendary. With a bachelor's degree in science and a 17-year career dedicated to inspiring and mentoring others, he brings a unique perspective to the table. Jeremy, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Man, Martin, I'm excited to be on your podcast. Been following you for a while and love what you put out to the audiences. And I recommend everybody listening to your podcast on a daily basis. So thank you for having me on today.
Thank you, brother. It's my pleasure and honor to have you, man. This is a real interesting topic that we're going to talk about today. As an entrepreneur myself, overcoming challenges is it's always at the top of the helm, right? You're always turning off. We're always dealing with something, and we got to get resourceful to figure things out. I'm going to go with the first question I got for you is, what does being resilient mean to you as an entrepreneur, brother?
Well, Martin, I tell everyone that I coach, on my daily meetings with different people and own a nutrition company as well, any leaders that I work with, I tell them adversity is either with you right now or it's just now left or it's on its way. So many different times, people look at successful people and they think, well, man, they had an easier road than I had. They had an easier path. They maybe was given a better home life or whatever the situation. And what I've found in my years of being an entrepreneur is success usually comes from going down the hard path. And
yes, it does.
The only people that don't succeed is the ones that quit. The ones that quit, they're just missing out on the opportunity that's right around the corner.
100%. Talk to me about that, man. What do you find in your coaching career, as an elite coach? Where do you find that the people that succeed at their helm, that are at the top of their game, do you find that those guys are the guys that have learned to overcome the big challenges? And how do you develop the mindset and the mental toughness to overcome the big challenges when the chips are down and the world's against you and you got to figure this thing out? How do you build that mindset?
Yeah, well, the one thing I tell everyone, Martin, is you don't overcome the big challenges unless you're prepared to overcome them. I tell everyone that it's all about daily growth. A lot of people think, it's all about preparing yourself to overcome the big things that come in your life. And I tell them, if you can't tackle day by day, you're not going to be able to overcome the big challenges. So what are you doing on a daily basis to grow the mind, to prepare the mind, to get the body physically in order to be able to handle these challenges? I look at every different ones I'm working with, whether it be an athlete, whether it be a businessman, and I'm like, if you can win every day, that's where it starts. I see so many different people, they say, well, I'm working with a young athlete right now that wants to gain weight. He's going to be a big D1, maybe a recruit right out of high school to play pro baseball. And he said, well, man, I'm not hungry, but I need to gain 20 pounds. I'm like, you can't tell me that you need to gain 20 pounds, but you're not hungry. Can you win today getting the macros in and doing everything you need to do on a daily basis? I'm working with a businessman that wants to increase his business career, but he has, a habit of drinking a little bit too much alcohol. And I'm like, can we say no today? Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about the next day, but can we conquer every day? Because if you conquer the mind, Martin, you're going to conquer the world. And if you can win day to day, when those big things come to you, you don't look at them as a big time obstacle. You look at them as a challenge because you prepared the mind and the body to go win that challenge, which usually turns into an opportunity, which gives you the reward.
Give us a story or give us an example of someone you've helped and coached through that, or maybe your own story on how you give us an example of how you win the day, like a strategy, share a story with us.
Okay. I could share a lot of different stories, but, probably the one that's dear to my heart, especially to this day, I have two athletes that I'm happen to be the father to. One of them is going to be a junior in high school, and one of them is going to be a freshman. And my freshman has always been just the most elite athlete, just physically, everything he's done, he's won at a high level. My older one has always not had the natural ability, but he's continued to put in the work. And we're actually flying down today to get his first D1 offer in baseball. At a
Congratulations.
college. Thank you.
Congratulations, brother.
And so what it's really done for him is it helped him click a couple of years ago that if it's not put on a piece of paper of what I want to accomplish the next day, then I'm probably going to float through the day. We talk big time into floating through the day. And so if every day he has on his list of paper his workouts, his macros, everything he wants to do from a conditioning standpoint, but not only that, from a mindset standpoint. That's one thing that's really missed in business, in sports, everything is, we understand that if we go to McDonald's 30, 60 days straight, we can pretty much guess what we're going to look like. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But your mind is so powerful. We talk to a lot of baseball athletes. We have a supplement that is provided to a lot of the MLB teams. And, if I understand that hitting a baseball is 90% mental, but we're doing 90% of our work just physical, but doing nothing on the mental side, we're not going to be prepared. And that's the same way with the business world. So yes, we're going to have a list of everything we're going to take in from our macros, our workouts, but also what are we doing to prepare the mind? If we're just flipping through TikTok, we're just flipping through Instagram on a daily basis, we're not listening to podcasts like yourself, we're not listening to and reading good information that's going to prepare the mind for those situations, you're not going to succeed.
Talk to us, brother. Coach us through this, man. We got a listener right now that's like, yeah, I love it. Show me how. Where do I start, coach? Where do I begin? How do I start making my mind better? How do I start? I want to start a business. I'm stuck in this job. I'm stuck in this situation. I'm really, I don't know what to do. I have this big decision. The world's against me. How do I start building that? Talk to me. Where do I begin?
I know everybody's heard of David Goggins. He talks about doing the hard things, and I would tell you, put yourself in a position early in the morning to do hard things. For me, I do an ice cold plunge bath at 5:00 in the morning. And I tell you, Martin, that's the one thing I do not want to do early in the morning. The next thing I do, I come straight to the office and I study and I journal. I put all of my attention into what can I do to become the best I can do today. And then I go straight to the gym. I already have my workout put on my app. I know exactly what it is I want to accomplish. I come straight back. I know how much protein that I need. I know 2 hours later, how much of a protein snack that I need. I know exactly what I'm doing in my business with owning my nutrition company. I have my meetings structured out. And then when I'm done with the day, I also do the sauna. I do a cold plunge again. I come straight back to the office before dinner. I do some more studying. I spend my family time, and then I come back to the office and I plan my next day. So many times I read this in a book when I was in my 20s. I've been in the nutrition industry for about 25 years now. And it said your growth as far as your sales, what you're producing, will never outgrow your leadership. So I see so many people stuck in life, they're wanting to start a new business, and they're sitting there and they're reading and they're getting in this information, and that's good, but they're not putting any action into it. You got to start putting the action into it, but also you got to say, what am I doing to grow on a daily basis? If I'm not growing on a daily basis, I'm not going to grow a successful business. If I'm not growing, then all of a sudden I'm going to start doubting myself. A lot of people look at, and talk about motivation. And I tell them, look, you're not going to be motivated until you start seeing action and you start seeing results. And then that's when the real motivation kicks in. I see so many people, they have a business idea. Maybe they started the business. It's not going the way that it needs to go or what they think that it needs to go. And I tell them, look, you're just starting on this journey. It's what are we doing on a daily basis is what's going to get us to that next level.
So the habits. So you're basically saying the habits that you create, you have a good structure. Talk to me about the night before, right? So I read this book, The Gap in the Game. I don't know if you read that one.
Yep.
Gap in the Game. I recently read that. I read that, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. And one of the things that the author of this book, great book, I've read a couple of his books. He talks about um, every night, and I started doing it since I have a system. I have my own system that I was doing before, and I still have that system, which is my gratitude journal and my stuff in the morning. But I started implementing this thing at night where now I have a separate journal. What were my wins for the day, and how did I improve today? It primes my mind for the next day for wins and improvement the next day, and
Yeah.
then start writing from there. What kind of system are you recommending for someone to start? Like, talk to me about that end of the day, preparing for the next day. What should that look
Yeah.
like for someone?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of the same things that you do, but the biggest thing is I take my list of exactly what I want to accomplish the next day. Obviously, my workouts are already planned out, okay? And then also I look at my business, what I need to do on the next day of my business. But I also answer one question: what is my biggest regret for the day? And that's
Mm,
one of the things I always ask myself. And so like for example,
a
I
powerful
got
question.
I got caught on a phone call yesterday for 45 minutes that I shouldn't have been on. It was just a guy rambling. That was 45 minutes that I'll never get back. So I've got a little system that I do not answer a phone call unless I know who it is, and I made a mistake and answered the phone call, and I got caught on 45-minute phone call because I didn't want to be rude, and that was my biggest regret. I was working with another guy yesterday, and his biggest regret that he had was he drank a margarita when he knew he shouldn't have drank a margarita because it led into 3 margaritas. And so basically, did that alcohol give him a gain in a day? No, it didn't. Did that 45-minute phone call, did it give me fuel or did it suck from me? So it's monitoring those little bitty things, because I can promise you today, I'm not going to get caught on a 45-minute phone call with somebody telling me about their soapbox and having a victim mindset. That does nothing but suck from me. It does not give me fuel. So that's something that I really am conscious about is, am I doing the things on a daily basis that is going to give me fuel, that's going to prepare me for the next day? Another thing, I don't touch my phone. My phone stays in my office at nighttime, and all I do for the last hour is spend time with my family and then also read. I always put a book right beside my bed, and I try to give my mind everything it needs before I go to bed.
So very strategic in what you're feeding your mind and your habits. Man, I really like that question. That's a good question. What's my
Yeah.
biggest regret for the day? Because it makes you it that question, as I'm saying it out loud, to me, what it does for me, man, that's powerful. It makes me more efficient. I feel efficiency, right? I feel efficiency because
Yeah.
it's making me think like, hey, where did I lose time today? Where did
It's
I
efficiency and it's also accountability, Martin.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to, as society today, if our day does not go as planned, we want to make excuses. We want to say, well, but I did this, but I did that, instead of saying, no, I'm in control of my day. I mean, when I work with, a pro athlete, I mean, they know exactly. I mean, baseball specifically, they play 162 games in a year. They know on their off days what they're doing from a training, what they're working on. They know exactly their meal plan, everything. And it's all about, what are you going to do? And are you going to make a regret and own it and be accountable and not make that same mistake?
Man, that's really powerful. Really good stuff. What keeps you going when it's hard to see the finish
Martin, the biggest thing that keeps me going is my love for what I'm trying to accomplish, which is make an impact on other people's lives. If we look at our own lives, and I know you said I had a couple boys, and for me, I tell my boys the greatest thing that I could give them at my funeral is people, not an inheritance of just finances, but people walking up to them and saying, your dad made an impact in my life. I'll never forget the first time I ran a half marathon. This is probably about 15 years ago. It's 13.1 miles, and at mile 9 and mile 10, you think, oh man, I can't do anymore. And then after you complete that, you're like, man, that wasn't that big of a deal. And then I ran 3 more half marathons in the next 2 or 3 months. And it's so crazy how our mind will literally, almost defeat us when we think that we can't finish a project or we can't finish, the making it to the finish line. But then when you make it to the finish line, it's all about saying, you know what, that wasn't that bad. I've got a promise to myself. I've got a promise to my family and all the people I'm responsible for that Jeremy Fouts is going to make some mistakes, but I'm going to give it my best, not just for me, but for the example I can provide to others.
That's great, man. It's about the legacy is the impact we leave behind. It's not just the money.
100%. 100%. I tell everyone I've always been a money motivated guy, Martin. I love making good income, but that's just a measuring stick of what I'm doing and providing value to the marketplace. People all the time they want to make money, but I ask them the question: are you providing value to the marketplace? Because if you're providing service and value to the marketplace, the money is going to come. But here's the greatest thing, and I know you know this as an entrepreneur. It's what the money makes of you. It's who you become in the journey. If you listen to any person that's made millions and millions of dollars, they'll make this statement. And if you have never made millions, you don't understand it. But they'll say, if I lose it all today, I would not be worried because I can do it again.
That's right.
Yeah. And then that's the mindset of reason. The reason that's the case is because they know what they had to put themselves through to be able to accomplish that. And they're not afraid of doing that again. They know the person they became in that process. And that's what's prepared them for being comfortable with the fact that if they can do it again. Just like I told you, I ran that first 13.1 miles and I thought I was going to die at mile 9. I was an athlete, but I never ran long distance. And then after I completed it, I'm like, man, there's nothing to 13.1 miles. I'll do it 3 or 4 more times.
What's interesting is when I did one around the same time you did, about 10 years ago. And for me, it was the first 5 miles that were rough, right? It was the first 5 miles. By the time I got to mile 9, I was just kind of cruising down. I was just cruising. It was the first 5 that were really, really challenging for me. I want to share a quick story with you, Jeremy. This weekend I'm in Tampa, and this weekend we just moved to Tampa, my family and I, my wife and I, and my wife and I went to this museum. It's called the Harry B. Plant Museum, and it's a hotel that was built by this man, Harry B. Plant, in Tampa in 1898, when there was only 750 people in the city of Tampa. The city of Tampa asked him to build this hotel. And he was a very rich man, and he said, no, I'm not going to build it there. I'm going to build it over there, but you have to build me a bridge, right? This is his negotiation with the city. The city said, no problem, we'll build you the bridge. And now today that museum is rented, is owned by the city, and is rented to Tampa University, right? It's in downtown, beautiful, beautiful structure. So my wife and I are walking in this building. We're walking through this building, and we have the headsets on, and we're learning about the artifacts and all this stuff. And the guy spent $3 million in 1898, brother, in 1898, the guy spent $3 million to build this thing, right? And I'm like, holy smokes, 1890, $3 million is a lot of money today.
Absolutely.
Right? $3 million in 1898 was a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, and so the one lady comes up to us, what do they call them, the curators or something. She's teaching us about the artifacts and the stuff in there to me and my wife. And I said, this guy was a really wealthy man, right? She goes, oh yeah, he was a very wealthy man. But more importantly, he was a good man. He really cared about this city. He invested all this money in the city. And she had nothing but good things to say about this man. And I got to thinking, I was like, man, aside from leaving this building, the man's reputation, his legacy that he left behind, and the giving back to the city was far more important. Giving back to the community and the people was far more important than his money. Although we're enjoying this and this is beautiful, but look at how that woman is talking about this man 140 years later, man, to your point about, when you tell your sons about when they go to your funeral, you want people to tell them your dad changed my life. And that's what I thought about that. I was like, man, my legacy, I do that through this podcast. Someone listening to you today, Jeremy, you could literally be changing that person's life, right? Like something they heard you say, something they hear us. And that's what I do this stuff too, right? To help people. I want to empower people. I want to stop people suffering if I can, because I know through certain habits and certain mindset, people can change and become better. So
yeah, Martin, I tell you on that subject, not to cut you off, but
yeah, brother, you're good.
I tell anybody I work with on a daily basis, the truth is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, if you can tell the truth 100% of the time, that's what 90% of the people can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I've learned is people are attracted to good people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I leave a conversation with someone, I ask myself internally, I'm like, did I leave that conversation, that person feeling good about themselves? Now, if I need to tell them some truth, I'm going to tell them the truth, but I'm also going to help build them up and let them know that I'm here to serve them. Service to many is the true way to greatness. And a lot of people are having those conversations in business thinking, well, what can I do to get in this conversation to get a sell for me? If you'll transfer that and say, how can I bring value to this other
Yes.
person? You're going to get the sell. It might not be today, but if you treat yourself right, I tell my boys, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and 2 minutes to destroy it. Just feel strong on that reputation and believe so much in your core values and do the right thing over and over, and it'll pay big dividends back to you, compounding on and on.
Yeah, man, you nailed it, brother. You just hit some really things on the head. I think actually, as a man, and I have 3 boys myself, right? And as a man, I always tell my boys, your money, um, what's more important than money and anything for men is his reputation, his word.
Yep.
When a
Yep.
man says he's going to do something, be very careful what you say yes to.
Yep.
Right? Because as a man, when you say yes, you better mean it. And
Yep.
and when you say yes, and then things are not comfortable, you better honor your word, or you go own up to that person you said yes to it and own it like a man. I screwed up. I dropped the ball. My bad. I said yes, and I should have said no, and I couldn't. And that should be harder than doing the thing, having to go on that thing. So make sure you're very careful on what you say yes to.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that helped me make millions and millions of dollars in my 30s is I learned also to say no when I needed to say no. And what I learned, Martin, is I'm a giver, and I would stretch myself. And anybody in business need to learn this as quick as they can. If you ask me to come to coffee tomorrow morning and I knew it didn't fit in my schedule, I learned to say, Martin, at this time, that's not going to work for me in my schedule. But if something changes, I'll get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learned that I was stretching myself so much and committing to some things that I really couldn't commit to. And it kept me from accomplishing what I needed to accomplish in my daily task, which was limiting the amount of success that I would have. And so learning also to say no, but 100%, I tell my boys and anybody I'm working with, respect and manners and honoring your word will pay you back big time. But yes is a yes, and I'm going to be there promptly on time. I'm going to have my cell phone turned off. I'm going to look you in the eye. I'm going to shake your hand. I'm going to treat you with respect and dignity, and I'm going to make you feel good about yourself. But if I give you a yes, then you can count on it. I'm going to be there. But you're right. Sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes, but that's
we're
okay.
humans.
Own it.
Humans, but own it.
Yeah.
If you said yes and you should have said no because you made a mistake as a man, oh shit, man, that's hard.
Yep.
Now I got to go back and own that and say, man, I own that. My bad. I said yes. I should have said no. I couldn't honor my word. And that, man, when you start doing that over time, you start to train yourself to keep to be impeccable. There's a book, The 4 Agreements. I don't know if you've The 4 Agreements. I don't know if you've read that one.
No, but I'll write it down and read it.
It's a good one. And one of the 4 agreements to yourself is be impeccable with your word. That's
right.
It's a great book. Be impeccable with your word. And I think that's one of the core essence of a man is to be impeccable with his word. When you say something, mean it. And to your point from earlier, Jeremy, you said you bring value to the marketplace. I'm a big believer in the marketplace rewards you according to the value you bring to it.
Oh, yeah.
Bring value, the money will come. Focus on bringing value as an entrepreneur, and the money will come. People honor that. People respect that. And honor your word. That's a big one for me. Integrity is one of my biggest values, is integrity and honoring my word. I think that's why a lot of my I know that's why a lot of my investors are attracted to me, because when I tell them, hey, we're gonna do this deal, let's invest in this deal, I keep my word, and they know that if I say it's blue, it's blue. There's
Right.
no fluffing of the numbers, and I
Yeah.
give it to them straight with the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. The truth is good enough. You might have some investment deals that you tell them, look, it don't all look pretty, but there's going to be a great reward, but there's some risk here. Are you in or you're not? And I mean, most businessmen are going to take that, and they're make a good decision.
Yeah.
But yes, the truth is good enough, man.
How do you deal with what do you tell an entrepreneur that's dealing with criticism, that's dealing with the naysayers, right? You got all the voices, you have this vision in your head, right? You had a vision in your head when you started your nutrition company. You had a vision in your head when you started with your family. I had a vision in my head for the life I live today, years ago. But you got naysayers. So how do you deal with people who criticize your ideas? And
Man,
what's the strategy for that?
I tell entrepreneurs, if you are not getting criticism, you're not doing something right. Okay. Now, this really bothered me in my 30s. I'm 48 now, Martin. So I mean, when you get older, man,
You don't care. I get it, man.
I mean, there's not a lot that bothers you.
Mhm.
And I tell anyone I'm working with, I'm like, hey, here's the way life works. You're going to be judged. Okay. If you are a fat man, they're going to say you're lazy. If you're a built and jack man, they're going to say you're on steroids. If you're skinny, they're going to tell you you're using diet pills. If you make a lot of money, they're going to tell you all you care about is money. If you're broke, they're going to tell you you're lazy and unmotivated. So you are going to get attacked in anything that you do. And the good way of knowing that you are headed in the right direction is when people attack you, when people criticize you. I mean, I'm actually a fitness, guru. I love nutrition. I've been in a lot of social settings when someone offers me a drink and I say, you know what, I'm not drinking right now. I'm focusing on this. They call me a weirdo. If I tell them that I'm not eating, the pizza tonight, I'm working on my macros, I'm only doing protein, they call me a weirdo. If I tell them I'm going to be at the gym Saturday morning, so I'm not going to go out on Friday night, they call me a weirdo. You know what? I tell all of my people that I work with, I say, hey, you want to be a weirdo if that's what a weirdo is.
That's right, man.
Because what I call a weirdo is the one that just follows the crowd. And if you can set yourself apart from the rest of the people in the marketplace and you can say, I want to go in the direction that's going to get me the best results. The best results is me being the most physical fit, mental sharp, feeding the mind on a daily basis and doing the best I can do to win as many days as I can win. That is what you want to do. Are you going to be criticized if you can't go play golf with your buddies on Saturday? And are they going to give you a hard time because you said that's a family day or that's a business day? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Are you going to get criticized when your business starts growing at 30, 40, 50%? And they're going to tell you need to chill out a little bit. All you're doing is focusing on your business. That's okay. It's going to happen. But naysayers, criticism, it's going to come. And when it does come, you just smile and say, you know what, I'm doing something right. I learned this a lot from my brother. I got a brother that pastors a church that has 15, 20,000 members. And I called him about 10, 15 years ago as he was building this church. And Martin, he said, I'm in meetings here and meetings here and meetings there. And he said, I'm working through these issues and I got this problem and this issue I'm working with. And I said, well, Rodney, it seems like you got a lot of issues. He goes, I love it, man. He said, because issues means growth. And when you don't have issues that you're working through, when you don't have problems on your desk in the morning and you're a business owner, when you don't have criticism, you're not growing. When you have issues that I've got notepads all over my desk that I'm working through today before I go jump on a plane with my son. But you know what? I'll look at this and say, I'm going to attack this one. I've got 10 on the ground here and I've got 3 more that I've got to accomplish. And I love approaching these. I look at this as this is growth happening on my screen. This is growth happening and I'm going to tackle these and look at these challenges and I'm going to overcome these.
You know, what's interesting is, as you say that, right? You said, hey, when those people, the naysayers are going to say you're weirdo because you're saying no to pizza. You're saying no to alcohol. What's interesting is the right people as you said that, as you were saying that, you know what I was thinking? Respect.
Yeah.
Like someone says that to me, like, hey, Martin, I'm not going to the beach today because I am focused on this. Shit, respect, man. Respect to you that's like, because it takes one to know one, right? It takes one to know one, like, yo, I respect you, man. Let's get you out of this environment so we can foster your goal, right? You honoring your goal, you're respecting yourself. So I respect you.
And that's what helps me at 48 versus when I was 30, right? Is at 30, I didn't understand that, Martin.
Mm-hmm.
You said it exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you tell me, hey, Jeremy, I'm not going out on social night Friday night because I'm going to be in the gym at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, then I look at you and might give you a hard time and call you weirdo. You know what's really going on in my mind? Man, I wish I could have that discipline. Because people, discipline is what gives you freedom, right?
That's right.
And people don't get that. If you don't have the discipline to eat correctly and to go do the exercise and do the things, you're going to probably be faced with disease and all these different problems and not having a good quality of life. If you don't have the discipline to manage your time, you're not going to have free time. If you don't have the discipline to handle your finances and to invest and to live on a budget, you're not going to have freedom of finances.
Mm-hmm.
So these naysayers, what I get now in my being 48 is you're exactly right. They really respect you. But instead of saying, Martin, I respect you for what you're standing for, what you're building in your company, you're doing in your podcast, you're feeding into those 3 boys. I respect you and I want to be more like you. Only thing they do is flip that mindset and say, man, that's a little weird that you're going to not go play golf with me on Saturday morning.
Yeah. Because like you said, in their mind, they're thinking, hey, I should be doing that and I'm not.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, man, nothing but I get it, man. It takes one to be one. I'll share this with you real quick. On July 5th, I was in my Pennsylvania house. I have another house in Pennsylvania, and I was in Pennsylvania. I have this project I was working on, and my project manager quit. We were doing a big redevelopment, so he quit. So again, I'm committed to my family, my goals, my business. I had to fly in, get away from my family for 6 weeks, fly in to execute because I gave my word to my investors and my partners and my lenders. I had to fly in, make sure. So while I'm there, it was July 4th weekend. I spent it with my brother, my little brother. July 5th, my mother and my sister come to my house over there in the mountains. And they're like, oh, we're going to go to the beach tomorrow, right? Why don't you come with us? I said, Ma, girls, I can't. I was like, I got to make sure that tomorrow, Sunday, that was a Sunday, July 6th. Tomorrow, Sunday, I got to go pick up the material for the guys at Home Depot and make sure it's there so that on Monday, there's no excuses that my guys are executing on this project that needs to happen. So I'm going to have to pass on the beach. You girls go and enjoy the beach yourself. But I'm on a mission, and this is what I came here to do, and I got to do what I came here to do.
Yeah.
So I passed on the beach day because I'm committed to something that I have to finish. I gave my word. I gave my word to finish this project.
Yeah.
I'm away from my family for 6 weeks to finish this. I'm not wasting time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what I call focusing on delayed gratification versus instant gratification. Mm-hmm. So the instant gratification is I'm going to the beach and as a society, we try to justify that, you know what, I've earned the right. I'm away from my family. I'm taking on this project, honor my word. So I earned the right to be able to go to the beach for 4 or 5 hours, whatever the situation may be. That's the instant gratification side. The delayed gratification side is, you know what, I'm going to not go to the beach and I'm going to focus on the project on hand. I'm going to honor my commitment here. And even though it stinks not to go do this thing that's going to give me that instant gratification, the delayed gratification is where the real reward is going to come.
Yeah, man. And I think that's missing in our society right now. This is why there's a lot of financial problems in the world, in our country right now, because it's that these phones, these things with instant gratification, that dopamine hit, and that's a muscle that it's just an art that's lost, right? It's an art that's lost. And I think it's men like you and I that have to teach our children and do the best we can to teach it. You coach, I also coach and mentor a bunch of people. And one of the things I'm constantly hammering, right? In real estate, especially we're developers, we're often buying real estate and it's 6 months, 7 months, and it's an ugly property, and you go through that super ugly phase. It gets uglier before it starts to get pretty. You buy an ugly property and then you got to gut it and you're like, holy smokes, look at this place, looks like crap before it starts to get better. Right. And you're just dumping money into it. But when it comes together, you're like, okay, now I have something that's worth significantly more and it cash flows.
Absolutely. Yep. It's sitting, and that's what I talk with my athletes and different ones that I work with in business is you got to have the vision and sight, man. You have to be good at visualization. I mean, you've got to see that project completed before it's completed. I mean, you've got, if you're working on your physical fitness, you got to see in your mind what you're trying to accomplish while you're grinding it out in the gym. If you're trying to build a successful business, you got to see and visualize what it's going to be like, and that's what's going to get you through the hard times.
100%, brother. Final question, man. What do you think entrepreneurs can do? What advice would you give to a new entrepreneur when you have a failure rate of, I think, like 70%, or it's really high, 70 or 80% failure rate in new businesses within 5 years? What are a few things that an entrepreneur can do to hedge their bet and decrease that failure rate? I've had my share of failed business. I'm 46 years old. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 9 years old. I was selling my toys, used toys in New York City in the street. You know, I've been a professional entrepreneur since I was 19, and I've had my share of failed businesses. But I'd love to hear your take and your advice to new entrepreneurs coming on the scene, a young man coming on the scene, a young woman coming on the scene. What are some of the things they could do to increase the odds?
You know, the most of them we've already talked about, Martin, which is just really treating the body and the mind as one of the most important things that's going to prepare you for success. You've got to get your mind as sharp as you can. Study, put into action. Study, put into action.
Input, output, baby.
And how are you feeling when you walk in a room? I mean, that's why I'm so big on personal fitness. You know, I've worked with so many different businessmen that probably knew more about their business structure than anybody, but they was not having the level of success. But I turned their fitness around and it elevated their confidence. It elevated who they are as a man and just launched them into a new path. You know, so I'm big on physical fitness. I'm big on nutrition. I'm big on mindset. The other most important thing, Martin, is to get out of your old life to make room for the new life.
Ooh.
You know, so anything you cannot, so if you and I owned a company and it's $1 million company and it's just making a little bit of money, but we believe it has a vision to do 10 million. We have got to create a new life, not for the business, but for ourselves. We have to become, but what we have to do is we have to cut out the old life. The 4 friends that want us to always go to happy hour, we got to cut that out. You know, the 3 friends that are always living victim mindset that are getting those 45-minute phone calls, we got to cut that out. You know, and you got to surround yourself with people that have built it, that have been successful. You know, I was talking to a guy the other day and he said, man, you're always talking about finding mentors. And I understand that's important, but who can I get as a mentor? And here's what I told him. I said, most of my mentors was people I listened to, like on your podcast. I was reading the books. I didn't know them personally, Martin, but what that did is that got me into this new arena of a friendship, of a marketplace that these guys was feeding me and giving me fuel to help me go to that next level. You know, we can't hang around the same people and expect our life to go to the new levels. It's just not going to happen. So I would say, yes, physical fitness, yes, mindset, but break out of where you are and start developing new relationships, not expecting anything in return, but new relationships that's going to help you be more successful. That is probably because if, you know, we've all heard it. If there's 5 people smoking and you're the 6th person, you're going to be a smoker. You know, it's the same way it happens on the positive. If I'm hanging around 5 millionaires and I'm the 6th person, over time, I want to be the sixth millionaire. And that's probably the biggest thing is if you're in the restaurant business, you know what, reach out to someone that has a successful restaurant, maybe not in your area, but somewhere close, and say, man, I would love to, to schedule a time to visit with you. Learn to find those marketplaces where those successful restaurant owners are at, that you can mingle with, that you can build relationships with, that you can prove yourself of being able to say, I'm in this for the long term, but getting yourself in relationships on a daily basis that's going to fuel you and get rid of all the stuff in your old life to make room for the new life that you're going to create.
So I love that this is really good stuff we're talking about here, brother. In 2008, in the Great Recession of 2008, I was in the mortgage business, right? So I had started my real estate investing career back in 2007. 2009, I made a ton of money, right? I made a ton of money in 2005, 6, 7. Those years were easy money in the streets. Then 2009, I found myself literally, Jeremy, putting my broker's license in the garbage in my garage. It was literally, I was standing over it one day saying, man, I made so much money a couple of years with this thing and now it's in the garbage. But during that time, I remember this. Now, we didn't have that technology that we have today. But one thing I struggled with, and I was at a turning point where I was like, okay, everything you just said, I was already in personal development. I had read a bunch of books, Think Grow Rich and The Magic of Thinking Big, and it was a tough time. I think we're headed towards difficult times again. I think the economy is headed for some challenging times here in the near future. What would you say to those people? I remember that time thinking, I need to change my circle. We know this intuitive. Like, we all know this. Like, we know the energy drainers. We know this. I remember watching the news, and that's when I stopped watching the news, was in 2008, when I was in the mortgage business, and all they were telling me was we were the bad guys, the mortgage brokers, and the world was coming to an end, and things were scary, and everything was horrible. And I said, oh, this is horrible shit. This is making me feel bad. I'm not watching this anymore. I'm done with it. But one question I struggled with was, for years after that, was I want to be around people doing things. I hear about these guys thriving even in this economy. I'm struggling. Where do I find them? How do I hang out with this? So that people might be listening to us right now and they're saying, this is great, but okay, how do I get around Jeremy? How do I get around a Martin? How do I find these guys to where I can learn from them? Where, how do I get that mentor? How do I find that? Where are these people? Because when you're in the negative hypnotic rhythm, if you've read Outwitting the Devil, the hypnotic rhythm of that negative energy and that negative field, it's hard to see how you get out of that rhythm and come into a different rhythm. Yep. What advice are you giving to that crowd that's thinking like, this is great, but how do I find those achievers? How do I become the fifth millionaire? How do I get in that circle? What advice are you telling them?
Yeah, I tell them books, podcasts, and I'm big on Instagram as well. But I'm not scrolling through Instagram looking for entertainment. I'm on Instagram looking for education. Mm-hmm. So I'm finding some podcasts like yourself, like I have a podcast called Hard Truth Podcast. And then I'm looking at books that you mentioned, a bunch of good books, mm-hmm. that I love. Another one, great, I'll tell everyone, The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. It helps you own the decisions that you've made in life. But the next is looking through the Instagram and finding the good coaches, the good mentors, and then shooting them a message. There's very few of us in this coaching space that will not help someone if they need help. But don't go to them and say, hey, Martin, I'm Jeremy Fouts and I've got all these problems in life or whatever. Your Instagram message is, hey, Martin, this is Jeremy Fouts. I've been following you for some time. I love your positivity. I love the content you're creating. If you ever do any men's classes or any workshops, I'd love to be a part of it. Keep me in mind. And pretty much every one of these guys does something. Some of them are free on podcast, on Zoom. Some of them charge $1,000. And then those people say, well, I can't afford $1,000. You can sell something in your garage and go get $1,000 to go to a men's conference that can surround yourself around good quality people. But you're on a search to find the ones that are making moves in the marketplace. And those are the people that you want to be around. I've got a lot of men that I follow, and anytime they have a conference, if I can, I will go. And it's not just learning from teachings from them, excuse me, Mark, but it's being around those other 20, 30, 40 men in the room that's looking for that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of my big business accounts have come from me coming to these conferences and not going to try to mingle to get big accounts, but it's like, hey, I've got someone that would love to have some products in the military. Tell me about your hydration supplement. And that's one of the things that I tell everyone: start by podcasts, books, and then also Instagram. I'm big on finding the reels that are motivating. Look up that individual, see what other content, do you resonate with him or her, and say, you know what, I'm going to follow that person. I'm going to message that person, let them know if they're doing any workshops. I love to be a part of it. And then just watching that community grow. One of the things too is you have to become that person. We talked about that a few minutes ago, that these people are attracted to. You might not be on their level, Martin, but if you're speaking with respect, you're speaking with sharpness, you're speaking from a heart that's hungry, then you know what? Then that is probably going to be someone that is going to be brought into people's marketplace, and they're going to share with you wisdom, and they're going to give you knowledge, and they're going to help you along that journey.
I love that you said that, man. Respect. If you go to those circles and you talk with respect, you talk with integrity, you're
right.
authentic. Man, people like that. People gravitate towards that.
Yeah. And I'm big on hiring coaches too, like yourself. Someone can just say, "Hey, Martin, what would you charge me a month to coach me on my mindset?
Mm-hmm.
What would you charge me, to be able to teach me about the real estate business?" Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, again, they're thinking, "Oh man, I don't know if I can spend $500 if Martin's going to charge me that." But then they go to a concert and spend $500. You told me you want to be successful, and you got somebody like you that's going to coach me. You know what? I'm going to find that $500, and you're probably not going to do it for free because there's no value in that. Mm-hmm. But not being afraid to spend money in order to make you better, to make more money.
I'll share a quick story before we wrap it up with you. Interesting you say that. I have a student, she just closed her first real estate deal, and she spent $15,900 to be in my coaching program.
Yep.
And the first 4 months, she was stressing. Oh my gosh, she was scared. Right? It's some money for some people.
Right.
She was scared, and I said, I won't mention her name, but if she's listening, she knows who she is. I said, "Are you doing the basics? Are you doing the stuff I've told? Are you doing? You keep doing them. I guarantee you're gonna have." She just closed her first deal last week, and we had our mastermind. I had my mastermind with my mentees last week, and she said to them, "I was afraid. I closed my first deal. She bought it for $150,000 as a triplex. The property appraised, the after repair value is $325,000. She's only got to put $50,000 into the property. She just became $150,000 wealthier. One move, one deal. Her net worth went up by $150,000. And she said to the whole group, she said, the best $15,000 I've ever spent in my whole life was this $15,000 I spent with this coaching program and in this group, in this community. The best $15,000.
Absolutely. I'll give you $15,000 for $150,000 all day.
All day long. Her net worth went up by $150,000. Boom, at the stroke of a pen. Just like that. Friday, 1 week ago from today, was her first deal. She was like, I was stressing, and Martin kept telling me, stick to the basics. If you do what I'm telling you, you're gonna find it. You keep doing. It's the habits. We talked about that a little while ago. It's the habits. It's the mindset, and you shifting what you're doing. So she $150,000 in net worth. To your point, sometimes people think, and there's a big audience out there that says, well, that's too much, and this is it. Well, that's one way you could look at it, or you can say, hey, if I do one deal or one thing I can learn or one idea, I go to 4 events a year, Jeremy, like you. I put in my goals every year. I'm going to go 1 event a quarter of events, men like yourself that I respect, want to learn from, and I follow. right? Want to go learn from you, and who else is there that I can network with, right? The people that
Right.
I've made business partners I got some business partners at these events, right? And I go to one a year. My goal is I'm going to go to one a year, and then I'm going to host 4 a year myself. So I host a
Right.
real estate investors meetup, and hey, take it, and then I give it back. I take it, and I give it back. I take it, and I give it back. And I invest in myself. I have coaches too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a business coach. I have coaches too,
Yeah.
right? But the best investment I found that I've made in my business is the one I've made in myself.
100%.
To grow.
100%. Yeah.
Right. So there's that audience out there that's like, no, I'm not gonna. And you're a coach, so there's too much money. There's so many. Well, what's the cost of not doing it? What's the cost of not investing in yourself?
Right.
Yeah. Right? How much is it going to cost you not to invest in yourself? Well, you're going to stay where you are and you're going to learn nothing new because you're not investing in your skills. You're not investing in your mindset. You're not investing in getting better. So I wanted to share that with you because I think we have a lot of similar values, my brother. I'm going to check out this book, by the way, The Traveler's Gift. Man, I haven't read that one. It's the first time I hear about this book.
Yeah,
And
it's a powerful book, man. I mean, I'm big, Martin, into. I get so frustrated with the society today being soft and they want to blame everyone. I call it the victim mindset. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Me too. That's what I call it.
That book, I won't give it all away, but it pretty much starts off with a guy that just got through getting divorced. He lost his job. His daughter's in the hospital sick, and an angel comes to him, and he was feeling sorry for himself. He goes, whoa, wait a second. You chose the college that you went to. You chose your degree. You chose the job. You chose to get married. You chose to have a daughter. And that's where we have got to be in order to go to that next level for success. Is we got to own where we are, and we cannot blame others. And that is the most powerful book I've ever read on helping someone take ownership of their life. Because if you don't own where you are, you're not going to that next level.
Yeah, that's really powerful, brother. Well, thank you so much, man. Jeremy, it was a freaking honor to have you here today, my friend. If people wanted to connect with you, how do they find you on IG? Talk to us about your podcast. Where can they go check you out, check your podcast out? How do they find you? How do they connect with you? Maybe they want to bring you on as a coach. How do they connect with you, brother?
Yeah, the best way, Martin, is at Jeremy Fouts Leadership. At Jeremy Fouts Leadership on Instagram is the best way. The name of my podcast is Hard Truth Podcast by Jeremy Fouts. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you want to find it. And I'm going to have you on as a guest as well on my podcast, Martin. I tell you are a stand-up man that's doing things right. And, I just keep helping others, making an impact in others. And that's one thing I love about you as a person is you're putting others first. And that's why you're having so much success today.
Thank you, brother. Really appreciate that. Means a whole lot to me, man. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. It takes one to know one. I know you're doing the same thing, man. That's what I say. When I became a certified coach, I'm an NLP coach, an NLP certified coach. It says perception is projection. And then we learned this is you can only see in others what you have in yourself.
Exactly.
Right? You cannot see. So when you say, hey, my wife is whatever, hey, you have that in yourself. That's why you identify it. So, like when you were sharing the story of when I asked you about the naysayers and you said, the naysayers would say, hey, you're weird. My initial instinct was respect.
Yeah.
Dude, respect, bro. I totally respect. You say no to this because you're committed to this. Respect, because I see it. We know each other, right?
Yeah.
That's my thinking is, man, dude, you're good for you, man. Respect. Keep at it. Well, how can I support you? My initial gut is like, hey, dude, how can I support you? Yeah. What can I do to support you in that? Like, good for you, man. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's because you've been there. The one thing good about being a good coach is you can't coach someone through an area in their life unless you went through it. And that's why I love working with someone your age, my age, that has that experience, is because you're not going to know what to do unless you have that experience. Yeah. And so, man, I tell you, what you're doing is phenomenal.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. That's what I tell young men, a lot of young men in their early 20s, and they're like, hey, I interview some young men here, right?
Yeah.
Naturally. And what I find is when I talk to young men in real estate and they haven't been through a downturn, right? I told you, I made $1 million. Then the next year, my thing was in the garbage. My mortgage license was in the garbage. and you don't experience that. When I interview guys like you, our age, there's an underlying tone of paranoia in the economy because you remember what that was like. But when I'm interviewing a young guy and he hasn't experienced that, and you remember these days, I'm sure you remember the gun-ho guy, I'm the smartest guy, I got this, this is never going to stop, I can do this. But us, right, that have the experience and seen some shit, we're like, and had some scars, we're like, well, I'm not that smart. I know I'm doing the right thing. I got to be disciplined more than anything. It's my discipline that's going to take me through this. It's not how great I am or how smart I am, or because the market can shift on us. And there's that
Absolutely.
there's that experience, right? That we get with age that levels us. The young guys, I remember being 24 to 26 and being successful and making $100,000 a year and thinking I'm the smartest guy and I'm so gifted and I'm so great and look at me, I'm the best. And then, boom, no reference, no experience, right? No reference point.
Yeah,
that's what I tell my wife. I think it's like, hey babe, I'm like, the best thing about being in my 40s now and close to my 50s is that my experience. I'm a little bit smarter. I can see things before things happen. I can see things 5, 6, 7, 8 steps before shit happens. I'm like, wait, nope, that's not the route we're going because this leads to this.
Absolutely. Experience king, Martin. Experience king.
Yeah, so brother, thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure, honor to have you here, my friend. Guys, reach out to him, Jeremy Fouts Leadership on IG, and check out his podcast. It'll be all in the show notes, my friend. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, Martin.
Salute, brother.
You too.